History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to History Goes Bump Redux. I am your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, on this episode, we're going back to a location we did in 2016. It's one of these glorious castles, Glamis Castle.
I can't wait for the listeners to hear this one.
There's a lot of weird legends and such connected to this and spirits. You ready to go back?
I'm ready. Many believe that Glamis Castle is the most beautiful castle in Scotland. This castle has stood for 650 years and dates back to the 14th century, remaining in the hands of one family for centuries. That family is the Bowes-Lyons Family, now known as the Earls of Strathmore. Members of the royal family are among that number. Not only is there a deep history to the land, but legends and lore abound here as well. Glamis Castle is said to be one of the most haunted castles in the United Kingdom. Join us as we explore the history and hauntings of Glamis Castle.
The lowland valley of Strathmore in Scotland is home to Glamis Castle. The castle is named for the nearby village. The estate encompasses a massive 14,000 acres. Before the castle was here, the area was home to the Picts. The Picts date back to the 6th century and were around until the 9th century. They left behind monumental stones that are intricately carved with symbols and inscriptions known as Pictish stones. Initially, the Picts were thought to be uncivilized tribal wildmen who fought off the Roman legions. But scholars and archaeologists have found them to be quite different people who were Christian and built monasteries. And they appeared to build with the divine proportion. Do you know what that is, Kelly?
I do not.
This is a ratio of dimensions in 1.618 to 1 and appears in nature. A good way to showcase this to people or help them to understand is imagine, the spirals of a seashell. That's divine proportion. Or some people's faces have what is considered a divine proportion, so it makes them seem to be more beautiful. Marilyn Monroe is one of those people.
Oh.
The Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris was built with this measure, as was the Alhambra Palace of Granada in Spain, and the Acropolis in Athens. Even the Egyptian pyramids use this measure. I would say we have the Picts to thank for that, but obviously if it's a divine proportion, it's from God, but they were the ones that really put it out there.
Robert II was King of Scots from 1371 to 1390. He was the grandson of Robert the Bruce. He appointed Sir John Lyon, Thane of Glamis, Keeper of the Privy Seal, which was one of the great offices of state upon his succession. Sir John became Keeper of Edinburgh Castle and Lord Chamberlain later, and he held those titles until his death, which seems to be caused by murder. He was killed while he quarreled with the nephew of the king, Sir James Lindsay of Crawford. Sir John was the husband of King Robert II's daughter, and the king gave them Glamis Castle, which was built in 1376. The castle consisted of a central keep and was built in a block style. It was enclosed within a fortified court.
The castle was rebuilt with an L-plan tower house in the 15th century. The L-plan design is built just as it sounds, in the shape of an L. This design was very popular in Scotland. It was an expansion on the typical block tower house, which was easier to build, but made defending the entrance of the castle difficult. The L plan made defense much easier. More changes came for Glamis Castle in the 17th century. The west wing was added, as well as a small northeast wing containing the chapel, which only seats 46. Most of the fortifications were replaced with things that would add beauty to the castle, like sculptures, courts, and vistas. The trees that crisscrossed the property were planted in the 18th century. Other additions to the castle at this time were a billiard room, updated kitchens, and a new service courtyard was installed beyond the east wing. The Bowes-Lyons had an estate near Gateshead called Gibbside that had a beautiful fireplace with the coat of arms of the Blackiston family that was moved to the billiards room at Glamis Castle. Sir William Bowes had married Elizabeth Blackiston, which is why the coat of arms was moved. The west wing was demolished and remodeled, and the grounds were groomed into open parkland, the style of which was Capability Brown. Do you know what that is?
I do not. Tell me.
Apparently, Capability was an English landscaper. How did their parents come up with that name?
I don't know. They wanted their child to be very capable.
His given name was Lancelot, so I'm not sure why you would change that. Why would you go from Lancelot to Capability? But he changed the face of 18th century England with his designs. He believes strongly in the principles of comfort and elegance.
In 1797, the east wing's roof was replaced with castellations. In 1820, the main avenue was replanted, and the Dutch garden that is in front of the castle was planted in 1893. The Italian garden was planted in 1910. The castle as it stands today is magnificent. There is a large central keep and several corner towers, all capped with the conical roofs that castles are known for having. There is a central stair tower, a crenellated roofline, and several projecting turrets. There is also a clock tower that houses the family history and archives.
The grandson of Sir John, Sir Patrick Lyon, was the first to have the title Lord Glamis, which was created for him in 1445. The sixth Lord Glamis, another John Lyon, married a woman named Janet Douglas. The sixth Lord Glamis died September 17, 1528, from poisoning.
Murder!
It was, and it's believed that little old Janet, his wife, had done the deed. She was accused of this crime, and she was also accused of treason in December of that year. Janet hated King James V of Scotland, as did her entire family. She had brought supporters of the Earl of Angus, who was her brother, to Edinburgh. The king had imprisoned her brother for his acts against him. So there was no love lost there. Eventually, King James found a way to do away with Janet for good. He had her accused of witchcraft and thrown in the dungeon at Edinburgh Castle. Her family members were tortured into claiming that Janet did indeed practice witchcraft. The punishment at that time was burning at the stake, and so Janet was burned at the stake. We actually talked about this on the Edinburgh Castle episode. She was the woman burned at the stake in front of her son.
So horrific.
Yeah. So it does make you wonder, did she actually poison her husband too, or was this just something else that they threw in to kind of do away with
Get her out of the way.
Who knows?
With Sir John Lyon dead and Janet now dead, King James took Glamis Castle for himself and lived there for a while after 1537. In 1543, the castle was returned to the Lyon family. The Bowes family was a coal mining family, and they had become very rich. Mary Eleanor Bowes married John Lyon, the 9th Earl of Strathmore, in 1767. And that is how the Bowes family became part of the Lyon family. During World War I, the castle served as a military hospital. When we did the original episode, Michael, 18th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn, was the current owner. That changed in 2016 when Simon Bowes-Lyon, 19th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn, succeeded to the earldom. Tours are offered, and the estate has a farming operation that covers approximately 4,500 acres over 7 farms. Wheat, barley, rapeseed oil, potatoes, broccoli, and carrots are grown here. The farm has a herd of Sim and Highland cattle, too. And the Highland cattle are those cute, furry, short little dudes.
Yes, they
Love them.
Very, very cute. Glamis Castle has many claims to fame. Mary, Queen of Scots, and her entourage visited Glamis in 1562. Shakespeare wrote Macbeth in 1603, and his main character lives at Glamis Castle. And some people think he based it on a real true story, actually. Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon was born in 1900. Our listeners know her by her more popular moniker, the Queen Mother. She married Prince Albert, and they lived at Glamis Castle when her second daughter, Princess Margaret, was born. That means that Queen Elizabeth II lived at Glamis Castle for part of her life as well. Glamis Castle appears on the rear side of 10-pound notes issued by the Royal Bank of Scotland. Legends abound with this property. One of the most well-known legends is that of the secret room. Stories claim that it was made for what was described as a monster. This tale is similar to ones we've covered in other episodes, in which you have a child who's born horribly deformed in some way, which would not be surprising with royalty, Kelly.
Inbreeding?
Yeah, because of the inbreeding thing. And so that child is hidden away from the public. The child in this story is the firstborn son of the 11th Earl. He was born in 1821 with deformities, and the family decided to tell the public that he had died in childbirth. He was then locked up inside a secret room. On the castle ramparts is something called the Mad Earl's Walk, which is where the disfigured child would exercise. A second son was born, and when he was of age, he was told about his brother. When he looked in on his brother still in the secret room, he found him to be healthy and incredibly strong. And the legend claims that the older brother lived for over 100 years. A tradition was started after this, in which the secret of the hidden room is told to the next heir on their 21st birthday.
Oh, coming-of-age story?
Yeah, well, what's funny is,
what in the world?
So now they tell this story about this secret room, but what does it matter now? Is it really a secret room, and it's not really keeping anything, so...
It was scandalous. There are other stories behind the secret room. Supposedly, the room became public knowledge when a workman was doing some renovating and accidentally broke a piece of a wall, revealing the secret room. He was given a large amount of hush money, but apparently it was not enough. And then, as happens with these sorts of things, the public started telling stories about what that room could have been used for. One story was that a vampire child was born to the family each generation, and that it was walled up in this room.
Did it smell of garlic on the outside?
I love garlic.
It just cracks me up when they're like, a vampire child. So are you trying to say that they were born as a vampire? Or did the vampires just like to go after children, so their child, one of them in this family, would always be one to get hit? I've never heard of a vampire actually being... Yes. I've never heard of an actual vampire being born that way. They're made that way, right?
That's how I've always understood it.
Interesting.
Another story was that the family used to keep their enemies in this room until they starved to death. In 1486, the Ogilvies came to Glamis Castle seeking protection from their sworn enemies, the Lindsay family. The Ogilvies were shown the secret room and invited to stay there, where they remained for a month. They were given no food or water, and when the room was opened again, they found only one of the Ogilvies still alive, and he apparently had eaten parts of the rest of the family to keep from starving to death.
Yikes, that's like a dog eating its owner when it gets locked in with them.
I guess he drank their blood?
That's
liquid?
what I was wondering. I'm like, where did he get some water? You can't live a month without water for sure. A really interesting story for sure. Proof of the secret room has been sought. One time, years ago, several guests decided to try to find the room. They hung towels outside all of the windows that they could access, and they found that one window had no towel. Was this the secret room? People have also tried counting all the windows from the outside and then counting the windows on the inside, and there are claims that there are always 2 more windows counted outside than inside.
And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors.
There is also the legend about a family curse connected to the castle. Sir John Lyon was tempted to remove an ancestral chalice from the family seat at Forteviette. He took it even though the law stated that the chalice must remain in that seat forever. Thus, a curse came upon the family. Is this where the idea of vampire children being born in each generation started?
There are many stories about ghosts at the castle. One of the more unfortunate tales is that of Jack the Runner. He has been seen running around outside the castle, and he cries out in agony. Jack was a black slave in the 17th century, and one day the earls decided that it would be fun to hunt a human rather than a fox.
Oh, my word.
So they grabbed Jack and told him to run. He was impaled by lances, and the hunting dogs ripped him apart. He's not the only black slave who haunts the castle. A young black slave was horribly treated here in the 1800s and died, and now is said to haunt a stone seat by the door of the queen's bedroom.
The grounds are haunted by an unknown female apparition. Whatever happened to her was cruel as well. She appears to have no tongue in witness reports, so she must do something with her mouth to reveal this to people.
I am envisioning a gaping maw, which is like horrific.
Very scary. Her face appears to be mutilated as well. The best guess as to her identity would be that she was a young woman who was possibly a servant in the castle and that she stumbled onto the secret room and its horrors. She ran from the castle and 2 royal guard were sent after her. They engaged in the practice of silencing her, which was using iron tongs to rip out her tongue and then throwing it onto a fire.
Ugh. Can you imagine? That is just horrific. And then all the blood. Wow.
Ugh. Normally, a silenced person was left to bleed to death, but this woman is said to have had her neck broken and then she was fed to wild boars on the grounds.
Yikes. I mean, the stories connected to this castle are just awful.
Horrific.
The small family chapel plays host to the spirit of Janet Douglas, who was burned at the stake at Edinburgh Castle. She has returned to her home in spirit form and has been dubbed the Grey Lady. She's been witnessed many, many times by visitors. Many of these sightings have been very recently. The Grey Lady is seen at the clock tower as well. Sir David Bowes-Lyon decided to take a walk after dinner one night, and as he rounded the castle, he caught sight of a girl gripping the bars outside of one of the castle windows. She appeared to be trying to get out. He started to walk toward her to find out who she was, and she suddenly disappeared, leaving him quite shaken.
A female guest stayed at the castle one evening. The next morning at breakfast, she was asked how she had slept. She commented that she had slept soundly until the carpenters woke her up at 4 a.m. with all their hammer banging and such, and that she thought it was weird that they worked so early in the morning when people would be sleeping. The people sitting at the breakfast table all stared at her in silence. Finally, someone said that there was no construction going on in the castle anywhere. The woman was immediately scared, and the head of the house asked that she not relate this story to anyone else.
Isn't it interesting that they wouldn't be like, she's crazy or was just hearing things, and instead they're like, don't tell anybody about that, okay? Makes you think something really happened. Probably the most infamous ghost at the castle is that of Earl Beardy. In the research, 2 names come up, and there's a discrepancy as to who the real Earl Beardy is. And then again, we're talking about a ghost here, so it all just might be a lot of lore. The story dates to the 15th century and is either about Alexander Lyon, 2nd Lord Glamis, or Alexander Lindsay, 4th Earl of Crawford. The key part is what the Earl Beardy is alleged to have done. He was a man who liked to play cards, and he took a gamble with his words one day when no one would play cards with him. It was the Sabbath, and his host refused, and the servants also refused to play, and warned him about playing cards on the Sabbath. He became enraged and declared that he would play until doomsday every day, and that if he had to, he would play with the very devil. Shortly after that, a stranger in dark clothes came to the castle. You've probably guessed who that stranger was, and you'd be right if you guessed the devil. Earl Beardy gambles his soul and loses, and the devil condemns him to play cards until doomsday. Some claim that his soul is in the secret room playing cards for all eternity. Now we know why they don't want you to look in there, or why it's still a secret room, because there's a guy in there playing cards, and gosh only knows what he looks like after all these years. Others claim that they have seen Earl Beardy wandering about the castle or leering over children in their beds.
Ew.
The disembodied sounds of dice rattling and a man swearing have been heard. Elliot O'Donnell wrote the book Scottish Ghost Stories in 1912, and he relays an experience reported by a woman named Miss McGinney in the late 19th century. Traveling in late autumn, she arrived at Glamis in what she described as the most frightful blizzard. Happy to be inside the warmth of Glamis's 16-foot thick castle walls, her bags were taken to a room in the oldest part of the castle, the square tower. During that evening's dinner party, the conversation between guests soon turned to ghosts, and in particular, the hauntings associated with Glamis. Although she was enjoying the topic, she did take the stories with a healthy pinch of salt and paid no heed to them. The evening drew to a close, and Miss McGinney retired to her room, her long day's travel having caught up with her. She soon fell soundly asleep. As the evening had gone on, the blizzard had abated, the winds had died down, and all was still. Now the gloom of the night had passed, her room was bathed in moonlight and was deathly quiet. Sound asleep, she was shortly awakened by a loud noise. Given she'd been in a heavy sleep, she took a few seconds to find her bearings. Aware that there had been a commotion but unsure of what it was and where it emanated from, she strained to see in the darkness to help her understand her situation. As she gradually came to, she couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't alone in her room, and in her words, "I became afraid. An irrepressible tremor pervaded my frame, my teeth chattered, and my blood froze." She sat upright in her bed, listening intently to the silence. Soon she could hear a noise in the distance, a noise she described as the footsteps of someone wearing chainmail, footsteps that were drawing ever closer. She could now hear clanging and banging noises, and the footsteps quickened. She realized what she was hearing: a fight with an aggressor and a defender. Then she realized the noises were happening directly outside the door to her room. It sounded to her like a battle to the death between two skilled warriors. She could hear weapons clash, the sounds of two men moving back and forth, vying for supremacy on the wooden floor as they evaded blows and attacked each other, and she could hear grunts and heavy breathing from the effort of battle. She then heard what she claimed to be the sound of an axe cutting through a helmet, the sound of a body slumping against her door, and then the body being dragged away. On opening the door, and who's going to open the door after that? I'd be like, I'll just go out the window,
No, thank
thanks.
you.
Anybody got a ladder? A rope? Tie these sheets together.
Mort, we need your help.
Oh, you don't want me making anything out of rope.
On opening the door, she saw nothing. No trail of blood, no fallen warrior, nothing. There was a paranormal investigator who said, "One of my favorite ghost encounters of all time was at Glamis Castle in Scotland. It's said to be one of the most haunted castles in Scotland. I was traveling with a friend at the time. She was afraid of ghosts and told me not to tell her if I see any for our whole trip. The tour starts with the guide opening the door to the dining area. I saw a beautiful lady dressed in older clothing. She was a white translucid. She looked up, and when she saw the group, left the room to the left, right through the wall. I immediately looked around, but no one else in our group was reacting. No one was surprised or curious. I thought it was a hologram before I saw no reaction. I was even more curious because where that ghost disappeared, it was just a wall. I was listening to the guide and just waiting for the right opportunity to ask a question. Finally, I could ask the guide, "This area," I pointed at an invisible rectangular door on the wall, "was there something here before?" He seemed surprised, but said there used to be a door there. It was where the servants would pass to get the food from the kitchen. Ooh. I was actually shocked. I did not expect that answer. My friend was curious, but didn't ask anything for fear of the reply, maybe. We continued on the tour, and the guide mentioned a little boy ghost tripping people over. I didn't see him. We then go in the chapel, and I sat in the first row. The guide then said there is a ghost that sometimes haunts the chapel, and usually sits in the back right corner. No one in our group sat even close to that corner. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. I did not see her, and as we heard earlier, that was probably Janet Douglas, the Gray Lady. Then we moved to another room. I don't know, this person seems to be, are they psychic? Because they're expecting to see all of these spirits.
Right.
Then we moved to another room. It looks like a library. There's a pool table, but what struck me was the man on the other side of the room. He was dressed in more recent-looking clothing, slightly translucent, and he was smoking inside a castle. He was amused by us. And again, no one was reacting to this smoker. I started to watch what other people were doing, and within a range of 3 meters, not one approached him. I was trying to not look at him too much because I didn't want him to know that I could see him. I was fascinated by how he was reacting to us. At some point, I thought I was going crazy, so I asked my friend if she could also smell cigars. She said yes. The guide overheard me and said, "This used to be the men's room where they would go after supper to just smoke, play, and drink. But it's not been used for over a decade now, and it's weird. I've never smelled cigars before in here." Clearly, that ghost did not see the non-smoking poster. Anyway, I was so relieved that other people could also smell it. It just reinforced what I was seeing. So that was my experience. To this day, it's still my favorite. After I meet a ghost, I always wonder, what if I had said this or done that? But I'm always too scared of the moment. Maybe one day. So apparently this person does see a lot of spirits, and this was the best. I'm like, if I saw just one of them, I would definitely be like, that's my favorite experience. But 2 of them?
Yeah, very intuitive. Glamis Castle has hosted royals for its entire existence and still houses members of the royal family. This may not just be the living members of the royal family, but those who have passed on into the afterlife. Are the legends about this castle true? Is Glamis Castle haunted?
That is for you to decide. Wow, this castle has so many great stories. This might be one of my favorite for sure.
Definitely.
I want to thank you guys for joining us on this Redux. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now.
Bye-bye.
Elliot O'Donnell wrote the book Sottish? It's Sottish Ghost Stories.
Forget the rope. I like making catapults. Can use those for just about anything.